Hello there, everybody. This is Tigitar here, and welcome back to episode 2 of the Tigaria build time-lapse. So we've concluded the trivia build last in that first little episode, and now we move on to the core area, the little castle part center around spawn. So I started out by just clearing out a large crater. I looking at it now, it looks large, but knowing what the end product is, it's relatively small. You can see there I preserved those small forest of really tall trees that were naturally generated, of course, just in case I wanted to use them for something. That's something I tend to do on most all of my worlds is if I'm going to be on a world for an extended amount of time, not just a random grind world or resource collecting world, I'll often leave the tall trees and other bits of unbuildable furniture or natural items. So we have the tall trees there. We also have, if you notice, that little rock formation on the right hand side. There's a big rock and then two small rocks. Both of those, this is before the rubble maker was introduced. Both of those, or all three of those rock features, are naturally generated. Where now I could just create those with the rubble maker, which is super nice. That item is one of my favorite additions to the game. But it is kind of cool to have the original generated with the world blocks, or not blocks, but furniture pieces there, just to have as a little extra touch. And then same with those two very small trees. Those, I believe, were also generated with the world. So I didn't really have a super broad or extensive picture in mind of what I wanted to do for the whole center, but I wanted some sort of greenish, like a green glowing, say like emerald gemspark was my theme idea, to be the energy source and or like conduit mechanism for the base and the world itself, kind of to give my base an energy mode or a structure that carries energy and support stuff. So that was kind of my idea, was to build something that would symbolize some amount of like glowing green energy and nature themed as well. So like a natural flowing energy. I don't know. Something along those lines. But I just kind of came up with some somewhat organic shape with the stone mixed in gray painted, living mahogany, I believe is what I did there. And I use that quite a bit to texture my bits of stone here and there. So it's a little bit more characterized than just regular old stone by itself. I needed just a little bit more space after I got the center sort of done up. Just started with the 3 basic platforms, and then the spawn teleporter, of course. And then I also needed the pylon accessible. This is also long before they updated the usable reach of pylons. So now you can use pylons from, I don't even know how far away, quite a ways. And you can go to and from, you can use the pylon from like 20 or probably around 20 blocks away, I don't know. But before, you'd have to be in like crafting reach. So you would have to be within like 3 or 4 blocks in order to reach it. And I think it was affected by like the extendo grip or items of the like. But now you can reach it from quite a ways away. So that's the reason I built a pylon right up against the spawn, so it was was barely in reach, even without building accessories, of being able to use the pylon from the moment you spawn in. And I had to make a few little tweaks here and there because at one point I wanted to like hollow out and make that little chamber bigger for the pylon, but then I had to float it up on like echo blocks to still have it in reach of spawn. But then I figured out I could like hammer the teleporter to drop you down half a block, and that would make it easier to reach, but in the end it all became irrelevant because they increased the range. So I made, I think, just 2 here, usable rooms, which are these ones in the bottom center with the table and chairs in them. So I wanted to have NPCs, obviously, to activate the pylon. And so I figured I would just do the minimum of 2 NPC rooms, and as I still have them now, one for the Dryad, one for the Zoologist, I believe. And that activates the pylon, so anywhere in the world where I'm working, especially here where I have to jump back and forth between worlds to get my resources and my building materials, I can just place down my universal pylons remotely, and then as soon as I get back into the world, just jump over to that pylon from the forest pylon. So that was kind of my first level of mobility infrastructure that I used throughout the whole build to allow me to more quickly travel between stuff. And I don't exactly know what I was doing there. Maybe it looked like I went over to the trivia game during that blood moon to test something, but I have no clue. So and here I finally got the Zoologist and the Dryad here. The Zoologist did happen or manage to move in, even though I've hardly at all progressed the world in terms of like game progression, boss progression, beating different enemies. It's still currently, here's me expanding the little pylon chamber. And I think what happened was I had my Architect Gizmo pack on, so I didn't realize that I had actually accidentally put it out of range at this point. Maybe I do realize it, I don't know. But I think later on I had to come back and move it because I realized that without the Architect Gizmo pack, new characters would not be able to use the pylon, which is not ideal. But anyway, the game progression, I didn't want it to be in hard mode, and in general I didn't want to pass progression breakpoints that I couldn't revert from. So even to now, as of now, the Wall of Flesh has not been defeated, so it's still in pre-hard mode. I haven't beaten Skeletron, so there's still the Dungeon Guardian. That's important for the trivia game. But I did end up killing like the Eye of Cthulhu, and then obviously goblins and stuff started spawning. So there are a few of those things that I did end up taking care of. So by this time I did have enough of the bestiary complete to allow the Zoologist to move in. And you can see I did end up needing to take out like 1 or 2 of these tall trees to just make a little bit extra room to fit my first tower, which I prototyped on the left-hand side with just pearlstone, ebonstone, and crimstone bricks all painted white. And that was my main brick palette for like almost all of the brick platforms and structures that I used for the entire core part of the build, and many of the branching smaller sections where I needed like little paths for connection or anything like that. And my goal was just to create enough space to put a handful of teleporters so that I could have options for hooking up teleporters for various locations in the future. which I've now completed with hooking up the teleporters for the most all of the display areas and the base itself that's now kind of contained in the center of the world. I still don't have far-reaching locations to teleport to outside of the 3 mini games that are done, and all those are accessed from now the top left teleporter, I believe. That's actually I'll have to check on that, because that's one of the things I just finished up most recently at the very end of the current standing of the project. Was basically wiring up the teleporters and fixing them all to function at the basic level. But if I do continue to add games or builds or other things in the world, I do have the extra teleporter space to allow quick travel to those. So that's always good. Have that infrastructure built in and ready to go. You'll notice there briefly down in the underground here, I had my temporary NPC hotel, or well, more like mini prison. Just holes, like the holes dug into the dirt for shoving all of the NPCs in. So at this point I had like the painter and most all of the pre-hard mode NPCs, I believe. And then I go to start figuring out what kind of roof design I want to do. So I wanted gold, and then I ended up figuring out that if I do gold with curved platinum bricks, that kind of gives a little bit of a depth effect, gives it a little bit of a 3D look. And then if I put diamond gem spark behind the platinum bricks, in addition to painting them white so that they stand out more, and that way during the night it actually looks pretty cool. I was pretty happy with how this roof came out, and you'll see in later parts of the build too, I kind of copied and worked off of the similar idea at various stages. So the whole center part of the world here is still currently kind of floating, partially suspended by the green energies, whatever you want to call them. But I did have some. Well, actually, now that I think about it, I don't know when it was that I finally had the idea of, or the vision to build like the large oval frame, and then the large twisting tree branches / vines to like support the very center piece here that we're working on now. But I was kind of working with a combination of the green energy plus maybe some like suspension from propulsion. Like sometimes I like to use steampunk chandeliers to act as like little jet pushers that suspend floating islands or buildings a little bit in the air. And so I tried to, I don't know, I had some idea in my mind of like somehow suspending these buildings or part of them with like propulsion instead of just the magical energies. But in the end, the tree branches came in and kind of tied it all together and fixed all that together. But for right now, it's just kind of coming up with standalone, cohesive a tower design, I guess. And then I plan to add, make it symmetrical on the other side. Added some of the big potted plants, which fit nicely in there. And then that's kind of all I did for a really long time. I guess the other bit of furnishing I haven't yet done was the banners. So it took me a while to figure out what kind of banners to use here in the spawn castle structures, and I ended up doing a bunch of just well, not that much, but a fair amount of AFK solar pillar enemy farming. I just threw on my full summoner set with the Stardust armor, and then I think I just had Terra Prisma that mowed down passively a whole bunch of the solar enemies over like a night or something, and I got over 100 or between 1 and 200 of the all of the banners for the solar pillar, and then I used those to paint white and then hang off of the castle pieces here, which looked kind of cool. I think I used mainly the Stroller. Is it Stroller? No, maybe not. Dracomire or whatever you call it. The sort of angular, almost like hanging trident looking banner. I really like that one. But then I also used a handful of like Stardust cell banners, if I remember right. So it was those two that I kind of went with painted white, and that added a good character to the outside of the walls there. So on the second castle on the right, or tower, I guess. I don't know. It's not really a tower. I guess it's kind of a floating tower, I could call it. I already had the prototype on the left done, so all I needed to do was copy it. So framed it up, outlined it all, and then randomly swapped out some of the brick for the other two variants. So I ended up with the pearl, crimstone, and ebonstone bricks all together. And then on this one, I was just not painting it beforehand so that I didn't waste paint. And I just got just copied it over really simply. Got all of the white parts in and then painted it all at once. And then continued with following up with background walls, the gold roof, and then the whole rest of it, which went pretty quick. I mean, I wasn't really looking at watching the timestamps of how long during the time lapse I spent figuring out the first one. But I remember at the time when I built it, it definitely felt like the second one went pretty fast, which it definitely should have, just copying over everything from the first. And then I had to start thinking about filling in the top and bottom center pieces to kind of balance it out. What I kept thinking, and you can easily see this at this point, was the Y-wing from from Star Wars, which is that sort of yellow and white rebellion ship. I think it's a rebel ship. I really don't know that much. I can't say I'm very well educated around Star Wars, but I have a handful of Star Wars Legos, so that's what I'm going off of. But the Y-wing definitely reminded me, or rather this reminded me of the Y-wing at this point, with the two big yellow and white, I guess, engine pieces on the side. I don't think they're actually engine pieces. I don't know what they are. And then I moved on to figuring out how to fill the space in the middle. So same kind of block palette idea, just some robust platforms. And I started trying to figure out if I wanted to have like some sort of actuated living tree at first to add support and structure, but I ended up kind of scrapping that idea and just going with the what's it called, pillars, like the marble marble columns, that's what they're called, aren't they? the which I used right around the spawn platform as well. Marble columns, and then either rich mahogany fences or shadewood fences, I think, is what I did. Oh, there, got king slime after the slime rain happened for long enough. But anyway, yeah, just some like straight up vertical supports rather than making a organic tree looking support. I just found it too hard to, I guess, fit in this space and not take up too much room in the foreground or take away from the symmetry that I had with the willow trees and stuff going on. So I actually totally forgot how much I tried to make the supports out of living wood at first. I'm curious to see during this review or commentary, while I review some of this footage for the first time since I built it, how much of this stuff I'm gonna start questioning myself, like, what was I thinking with that? I guess I don't know, I was playing around with stuff. Totally didn't remember trying to do that, but that didn't work at all. There's a lot of stuff that I remember, that I do remember trying that didn't work though. But I'm sure there's going to be a lot of stuff that I don't remember trying and discarding. So now I'm finally on to the upper middle little piece of the castle. And I basically generally copied just the top, the roof, I guess, the very top roof, and then made the room in this inside a little bit larger, just threw in this tree. I don't remember that if that tree is still there, actually. It must be. For some reason, I don't remember it, though. That's really funny. Similar design, and then it worked okay to fill the middle space. And all of a sudden, it's not really looking like a Y-wing anymore. At least in my mind. Now that I'm, or like subconsciously anyway. If I consciously think about it, it still kind of does. And then I had to figure out what kind of fences to use. I ended up just using a lot of the wrought iron fences, and they work out really good in general. But it was either those or kind of some. I think I was deciding between those and like, it must have been mahogany fences a lot of the time or something. But I ended up using like mahogany fences mainly for the pillars. Oh yeah, here's me figuring out what kind of banners I want to try. So I grabbed a few different ones, tested them out. Yeah, came up with what I wanted there. But I only had like a handful of them, so then I had to go do some AFK farming. Anyway, yeah, the mahogany fences are good for vertical pillars, and then the actual background fences or small roof features or something like that, the wrought iron or regular iron fences, both are good options depending on the theme you're trying to match best. Started setting up a sort of a temporary few chests to store some stuff in, but it's still going to be a while before I actually get my storage room set up. But as of right now, I'm still not using like a whole ton of block variety. I mean, there's a fair amount, but definitely nothing in comparison to what's going to come later. I just have a very small block palette, which works out nicer when I'm trying to go through and bring resources from another world. That's for sure. So then to balance out the new top section, I had to figure out something to put on the bottom. And so got working on that. not really all that much to it. I did use a handful of iron grates in addition to the bricks to kind of act as a transition between bridge and or to support part of a bridge or transition between the castle and a platform walk. So they worked good, but I did want to keep platforms where I could so that it just enabled mobility in that. I remember trying to spend a decent amount of time on getting the connection between the little organic core, the stone core, heart core, whatever you want to call it, where the NPCs are living. The transitioning from that to the lower center tower was kind of tough. I spent a while messing around with making that look smooth and decent. And then you can also see I've got most of the lighting kind of figured out. I spent a little bit of time trying to decide which lights to use, but it was pretty clear that I wanted to use just the just the marble lights, the lamps, chandeliers, and lamp posts or whatever. Lamps and lanterns, right? Yeah, it must be marble lantern, but for whatever reason, I'm second guessing myself. It's got to be lantern, though. Right? It's not like a marble sconce or something, even though that's visually closer to what it is. I don't think so. So then, yep, more white painted bricks, a few more banners, the lights, and then the center was pretty much there. So that's kind of the general conclusion for the innermost castle, which I guess in the end of it just functions as the teleporter hub for future connectivity of travel and all that. Usually I get towards the end of a section or part like that, and you'll see me just kind of stand around, open the map, contemplate things, look around, and that's only a fraction of what the time I spent actually just looking at the map, thinking about shapes and ideas in my mind, trying to come up with some idea, and then trying to start jotting stuff up and that. So here is where I start trying to figure out what size of and what the dimensions are that I want to use for the oval frame. So I went and figured out a rough size here, and then went to my trusty Minecraft pixel circle generator, which I've used so much over the years. That's got to be like one of the most amazing tools. And then went and started sketching out the frame from there. And it looks like I roughly just about got the first one in place. I can't remember again. How many of these I mess up. Like I must have messed something up there, or I decided I wanted to raise it or lower it by a block or two. I think I might have accidentally been off on part of my count. The circle making project or process rather is always a really tedious and precise part of a project, I guess. It's one of the parts where if I get through like a whole quarter of the curve or like half the circle, I finish and then realize it's off by a block. It's so annoying just going back, double checking each segment, seeing, counting all the blocks, where I was off by one, and making sure that that all lines up. It's very rewarding in the end after it's done, but it can be a big pain if stuff gets off by a block or two in the middle. Then I realized that I do have to give myself a little more space. So here would be like the second expansion of the hole. Still using the axe instead of like I've gone to the Nebula ham axe now for the greater range, and it's also I think it's actually faster than the axe. But the axe is one of my most favorite items, and I don't remember if I must have put it in its own special place with my favorite items in Tigaria, now that I think about it. But I remember the first time I got the axe, and before this was when it was still a 1 in 200 drop chance. I believe it was 0.5 rather than like, what is it now, like 2%? It's like 1 in 50 now, but back before that it was 1 in 200 if I remember correctly. And so I spent a long time just running through the jungle looking for Plantera bulbs, burning them down, hoping to get it. And so I was actually down in the basement of my cousin's house while we were all homeschooled, and he was working on math with my mom upstairs. He was working through math problems. And I remember getting the axe and being so excited. I ran upstairs shouting to tell him about it. And it dropped as a legendary one as well. I couldn't believe it. So I was super, super happy about that. And ever since then, I've just really had a special place in my heart for the axe as an item. And I was definitely sad when they increased the drop chance after I worked so hard to get it with the original drop chance. But it is still a rare item, that's for sure. Oh, what am I doing there? Oh, that's right. I'm looking at my block placement here on the outer ring, and I had forgotten that. So I actually went and generated a second oval to build around this first one instead of usually what I'll do if I want to thicken up a circle or an oval is just count like 4 blocks out and then build it from there. But because it's hard to stay even like that on like a curve, because if I go 4 blocks to the outside, sure, on the very vertical edges on either the left or the right, I can count 4 blocks and make it that wide. But when you get to the diagonals, you kind of have to start making it up. So I ended up generating a whole nother oval so that the thickness would be consistent for the whole thing. And it definitely worked out really well, provided I got all the got all the placement correct. But I don't remember having too many issues with this part. I do remember having more issues when I was trying to build the circles for Tigitar, or the arches rather, for like the top half of the base. Well, actually both the top and the bottom had full semicircles, and I messed up those at least once and had to spend a lot of time recounting and adjusting to correct for that. So finally got the outside and the inside of the oval lined out, and then I just filled it all in with stone. And then I think I probably go back and texture it from here. And I think about, yeah, so I ended up, man, I'm yawning. I ended up just using the green Gemspark blocks to give it its glowy energy effect. And that way I could switch out the blocks, add more texture and color with like the gray painted, I believe I switch out some of the stone with gray painted rich mahogany, living mahogany, and that helps a lot. And then I can't remember if I do other stone or not. And then I did I keep it like this too? I lined the whole thing with one layer of grass, both on the inside and the outside. Just add that green to it and make it feel a little bit more alive. And then came up with the 4 larger crystals that again emanate the supportive green energy and stuff. Staff of Regrowth. It's always fun just sprinkling in the grass. You don't have to worry about getting every single block, because before you know it, the grass will spread by itself and then fill it all in for you. I've always kind of liked that. Oh, here so this is when I switched out the rest of some of the texture for the living mahogany. Add that in there. And I don't remember if I start building inside, or I think I must start building inside next, right? Oh yeah, I did spend a fair amount of time trying to improve the crystal design, and I ended up just like sticking with what I first came up with almost. I find that happens kind of a lot too. I'll throw something up, look at it, think, oh, I could probably do better than that, try to come up with some new ideas, spend like half an hour changing things up, and then just end up reverting to what I had originally. What the heck is this? I didn't know I included my herb farming footage. That probably didn't need to be in here. Anyway, back to figuring out the crystals here. Yeah, once I got one figured out, then I just copied. I did use a little bit of the xenon moss to highlight around the crystal itself. Just more glowy green. And then what was I gonna say? Oh yeah, I just copied it, mirrored it on top and bottom, and then just flipped it horizontal for the left and right. Although, did I do that? No, maybe I kept the crystal vertical on all 4 locations. That's right. Oh, and then because of the xenon moss, I did have to make sure that just the very inside of the area for the crystal was stone and not living mahogany, because the moss wouldn't grow on that. I also had to be aware of that as well with the regular grass that I put on the outside of the oval. That doesn't blend with the living mahogany blocks. I don't know how many voice cracks, or like how many times my voice is gonna die during this. It might be a lot. But anyway, I did have to make sure that I had just regular stone blocks exposed on the very outside, touching the grass, like the outer shell underneath the grass. Not the grass, but you know what I'm trying to say. Because that way the grass would actually blend in with it, other than instead of leaving the goofy little disconnected texture, which on grass is definitely probably the most obvious and worst look, I would say, of all the non-blended textures. Now that I say that, I'm wondering if that's actually right. I might be wrong about that, but because it looked like I had dirt not blending with the living mahogany, but then after the grass grew, maybe it does actually blend. I might be totally wrong about that. Who knows? Maybe I don't know what I'm talking about. But I was able to, after that, get started on the supporting structure for the oval. So I wanted 4 tree trunk-like supports to be holding up and grasping onto the frame. And then from these trunks is where I eventually am able to add in the twisting vines that wrap around the whole frame. I spent a lot of time figuring out how I could kind of the best way that I could blend in the tree around, behind, but also in front of the framework itself. Because I really wanted to make it look like it's twisting around it, like sometimes going in front, sometimes behind, and just growing all around. So I took a lot of time to figure out how to overlap the frame, the grass and stone in front of the tree, and then also overlap the tree in front of the other if I needed to. And it was a whole lot of messing around with actuation, different combinations of paint, and then different blocks as well. So for the tree itself and the wood, the whole thing was built mostly with the living wood, and then I switched out a good amount of it to living mahogany, only painted brown, which blends in pretty close with the wood. And then just very lightly, I also sprinkled in brown painted smooth marble, which blends smoothly with both of the other wood types. And it is definitely lighter and smoother, and so kind of sharper in some ways. So I didn't want to use it too much, but I found that if I was sparing with it, it did add a little bit of a little extra level of texture and detail, made it feel a little more organic. So on this very first little trunk, I spent a lot of time figuring out how I wanted to go about texturing and adding that depth to it. So certain sections are actuated, some are left in the foreground, some are painted, some are not. And what is it? The walls, I think I used both. Oh, that's right. Yeah, looking at it, I can remember. So I used the living walls, and I don't think I painted them, or maybe I did, but it wouldn't really make a difference. Painted them brown. For any of the back set wood that I wanted to do, anywhere where the wood was going behind something else. But where the wood was supposed to be in front of something, like you'll see a little section of leaf that's supposed to be in front of the foreground trunk section, I used brown painted marble walls, which are a lighter brown, which blend in pretty closely with the foreground wood sections. So I used those when I needed to bring the branch in front. And then for the stone, I just used stone walls, but painted them white if I wanted them to match the foreground, or gray or something, or maybe unpainted if I wanted them further back. So it really wasn't that hard to get in the end, but took a lot of messing around with and playing with them. It was definitely a fun challenge to figure out the best way to do it anyway. Of course, then you also have the lighting to worry about. And then after all of that, I also wanted to add the glowing, pulsing energy effect. So I added a lot of green or emerald gemspark walls in the tree itself and around, coiling around. Then I had to be careful not to expose that in the gaps where I needed the other wall types. And yeah, it was overall a pretty tedious part of the project, I guess. Man, I am getting tired just watching this now. And I'll also mention, in my mind I thought this was going to be a shorter section, like an hour 45 or something, but it's actually like 2 hours 45 minutes. So we're going to be here for a little bit. Actually, this is great. So yeah, the whole frame though, the twisting vines took quite a bit of time. And then in order to keep even the actuated blocks from blending, you see me do a lot of hammering work to keep the grass from being blended. And then behind those, I just have to add the living wood walls to close the gap, I guess. Yeah, I remember spending a lot of time on this, but watching it now, like, yeah, I spent a lot of time on this. Even in the time lapse, this is like creeping along due to how much time and detail is required to get all of the hammering, the painting, the wall choice and overlap, and make it all look decent. This might be, in general, just like the most impressive part of the base, I guess, now that I'm really thinking about it and how much time it took me. Well, I guess this could be an opportunity. I could share the story of how I first got Terraria, which was maybe a month or two after it came out in 2011. At my cousins showed it to me, of course, and so I watched them play it and tried it out at their house and stuff, and then I had to convince my mom that it would be worth me spending like $10 on it or whatever, even though it wasn't. I couldn't pitch in with the 4-pack group purchase, because my cousins already had 4 people on it to get, and I wasn't able to get on it. So $10, and I was like, Mom, it's like a really cool game. I promise it's worth it. And even though there are zombies in it, it's not like a gory game or anything. I had to convince her pretty hard that even though there were zombies, it wasn't like gruesome. I didn't even know at that time if you could turn off like the blood and gore settings, which aren't really that gory if you ask me. Just even on the supposed gory settings, you have like a zombie head flops onto the ground, pixelated for a few seconds before disappearing. But I'll always just kind of remember that, how I was able to talk my mom into allowing me to try it out, and then got going on it from there, I guess. I still have my original single-player world that I first played on, which I shared off in my Terraria history video for Terraria's 10th year anniversary, and that was fun. But definitely just been, yeah, my favorite game ever since, pretty much. I also remember during that time when I was first playing it, like, so I played on my cousin's computer and made my own world. And I was so excited to play it, like I'd be over having a sleepover, and I would wake up at like 4 in the morning because I was so excited to play it some more. And so I get up super early. My cousin is still asleep. I turn on the computer, get on my world, and then I saw a demon altar for the first time down, like I was just digging underneath my little starter base that I was building, and I saw it there, and I was like, whoa, what is that? And I like woke my cousin up. I was like, dude, what is this? Look at what I found. And he's just like, what? That's just a demon altar. Like it was nothing at all. And then it went back to bed. And then I kept playing. But that's another nuanced little experience that will always be with me from when I think about my earliest Terraria days. Throughout this, I also set up that little tree farm up in space, which I continuously harvested basically as I was building in order to sustain my wood production for the amount that I was using on these vines, which was quite a lot. I don't remember if I would make new worlds and then just clear out all the trees on the surface and go back, but honestly, if I made like just a flat runway of trees to grow, you can grow a lot of wood and then chop it down really efficiently and easily when it's all in a straight line. And while I'm of course working on building, the trees grow back pretty quick, like quicker than I can use up all the wood. So it worked out just fine just to continuously grow it right up here on this world, and got plenty of that to work with. I guess I did have rich mahogany that I had to farm as well, but I think I did that mostly on just on my other world. I had like small tree farms for all the different trees, but kept my supply up for sure. And then yeah, used a lot of materials here, so got going now on the second of the 4 supporting trunks of the vine. And yeah, just basically had to first figure out how to twist and wrap the main arms of the vine around the oval structure. Figure out, try to imagine like where they'd be overlapping, what kind of depth to add, how they're twisting and turning, and then just get it all actuated, walled, painted, put together, hammered. Just like I said earlier, and I'm realizing it now, probably the most tedious part of the whole base build was this. But I do have to say it's probably worth it, looking at how it turned out. And even at the time when I first started, just like at this point, I started to see the vision of what it could end up like, and I was pretty excited about it. I thought it was going to work out good, so I had to keep pushing through. So here, where I have the branch going in front of the stone, I actually hammer all of the stone blocks into corners so that they aren't blending at all with the wood, and then add the stone walls, white painted, I believe, behind there to smooth out that gap behind the branch. I wonder if that one marigold that's right below me is still there, because I think that and a few others grew naturally on the grass from the ring structure, and I think there were quite a few of them that I left and just left into the build, on top of the rest of the plants and flowers that I eventually threw in myself to add back in a little color and a little texture and here and there and all that. I guess I wanted to bring the ground up a little bit more there, just to add some symmetry. It's funny watching myself do that, because I guess I just wanted it more even with the other side so that I could build this tree off of it. But at this time, I really didn't know about like how I was going to expand from here. But as you probably know, I ended up just digging out everything below this point down to level surface and completely hollowing that out, and then adding the big tall stone supports above that, which I think we'll get to that in this section actually. But yeah, at this time I just kind of wanted the trees to have roughly a similar spacing and generally similar size for the support of the structure and all that. I wonder if I forgot to record a section there, because suddenly these twisting trunks on the far right hand side appeared. I think I may have missed an hour or two of recording by accident. Maybe not that long. It's hard to say. There were a couple of times where I caught myself, though. Accidentally forgot to hit record. But overall, I think I did capture it pretty decently. Definitely did a better job than on Circuit Terra of actually doing the whole build process. So I'm excited to have this going. But yeah, definitely still going to be a few spots here and there that I may have inadvertently left out. But overall, yeah, pretty minimal. I tried to have each of the 4 trunk sections be unique, so and I think I don't know how much I end up changing this one. I don't think it ended up like that, did it? It's not those 3 unique or distinct vine trunks. I kind of combined it and made it a little more uniform, I want to say. Starting to get close to connecting the right hand side together. I ended up like kind of continuously connecting the vines instead of, in reality, you would expect like a trunk to grow, then vines out from that, and then they would end in little branches or leaves and stuff. But I think in this, I kind of ended up just tying them into each other and connecting them, so the vines may come up from one trunk and then go down another, which wouldn't actually make natural sense, but it's all part of the magic of the green energy, the emerald energy. What else can I say? So again, you'll kind of notice that very first section, the left-hand trunk, I sort of went all the way with texturing and walls and leaves and actuation and did everything. And then once I realized what kind of format would work, I went and just started out framing and outlining and building the bulk of the vine network itself. And so I got all of the vines in place, and then I went back and like textured them, added the living mahogany, and then and maybe some brown painted marble, smooth marble. Then I went back and added the leaves, did all of the smoothing out and crossing and hammering and stuff. I guess maybe I did most of the hammering and actuating along the way here initially, but definitely had to come back through with rich mahogany, living mahogany. I keep calling it rich mahogany. It's all the same. Who cares? And then leaves and the small branches I did last after I got the main bulk of the twisting supports in place. And I definitely found that I forgot what I was going to say there, but that's probably going to happen a lot too. I'm going to start saying something and then totally lose it. I figured out though that there are times when it's useful to zoom in. I can see a lot better, especially in like if it's nighttime or something and there's not great light. I can see what blocks are hammered and what's not and what's blending together. And then that's another reason why I wear the Vortex armor, is because I can go invisible if I want to, and that way my player box isn't obstructing my view of what I'm trying to build and stuff. So you'll see me a handful of times use that little feature as well. But between zooming in and making my character invisible, both those can help a lot in hard to see circumstances. Start wrapping around the right hand gem with the vine. I'm not sure how much more I'm going to be able to talk about just the living wood part. I still got a lot of vine to build though. And at this point, I'm pretty sure I still have no idea of how I'm gonna like build platforms or pathways in and out of the frame. That's for me to figure out after I finish getting the twists all around and set up. Get started on the upper half here now, and I do remember it start to go quicker as I got more practice and experience in with it. So it gradually got a little bit more manageable, I guess. You can see little glimpses when I open up the map of kind of what it's starting to come together as. And in this stage, like before we add the leaves and stuff, it's kind of cool in some ways because of how stark the contrast is and how smooth and clean it looks. But that's in map view. In person, it definitely adds a lot to it by the time I get the leaves in and all the different textures and stuff added. There's another one of the marigolds that grew. Squirrel jumping around there. I'm curious to see now. Oh, I guess that marigold did not make it. I was gonna say I'm curious how many of these plants I can recognize and go look at the final product or the current product and compare what's there. I'm getting close to the top center now, wrapping up from the left side, and yeah, just slow and steady progress. And there we start on the final quarter. Start using the invisible move. I still gotta remember not to touch my desk and make the creaking sounds. Well, you saw briefly there my map looked all funky. There's a weird glitch that pops up here and there where like my map would kind of get inverted almost, like when I alt tabbed or something to a different page. But then if I minimized it and reopened it, the window, then it would go back to normal. But I did notice that happen quite a few times. Coming up on it, got like 1/8 of the oval to go of the main vine. Then we still have to texture it and then leaf it and all that. It is definitely cool how sort of how much detail and how precise you can get between hammering blocks, actuating blocks, and then using walls. You can really make some pretty smooth curves and corners, and get pretty detailed in a lot of areas. But again, it costs quite a bit of time. And I think that there just about does it for the main vine. Got my progress picture taken, and then it was time to just continue on to get a little view of the world map, and then start grinding away at the whole rest of the project, I guess. Got to remove actuators, got to add branches, and then add leaves on the branches, and then add texture to all of the wood. I guess branches was the first thing I started with here, because I would still have to add texture to these, so I wanted to get those on and figured out. Man, the hardest part though about making like artificial trees like this and plants is probably the leaves, to be fair. Like figuring out which parts to actuate, but also if you're able to making sure you hammer hammer basically everything you can before actuating, because after you actuate blocks, when you're hammering them, if there's adjacent blocks that are actuated, the hammer texture won't actually accommodate for that. So you'll have to hammer it like way more times, most often, if you had preemptively actuated the blocks rather than hammering them before actuating them. So that can be a big distinction. And then you'll also notice here and there where I end up having to deactuate certain blocks to make it look like small branches are back in the foreground ahead of other background pieces of the vine and stuff. And I'm trying to leave some space, I think, probably here in the center, down in the bottom, so that I can build something else. Although it could have been that I just wasn't thinking about that and thought about that later after I looked and noticed how much space there was available and wanted to like fill it with something. And I wonder if this might be before I decided to add the 4 main vines that connect from the outer circle or oval outer frame into the castle in the center. Backtracked a little bit, took out a couple of the branches that I didn't really care for. I bet like 2/3 or something of this whole section is going to be taken up in time-wise by these vines. Because I still got so much to do. Okay, here we go. Finally on to the living mahogany. Got that brown paint as well. If you don't have brown paint with the living mahogany, you really see that red come through, and it kind of, it doesn't blend much at all with the living wood. So definitely wanted to use the brown to match the color much more closely with the living wood, and that way I just got the cool texture that I really like from the living mahogany. Maybe I do end up leaving that trunk, or those three kind of twisting trunks, the way they are. For some reason I don't remember them being like that now, but there's probably a lot of things like that that I just haven't paid attention to in so long. Had to go make a stop and grab some more more rich mahogany to turn into living mahogany. Before I think my final block is just the brown painted smooth marble, which goes pretty quick. Empty out my inventory, get back into it. Oh, forgot something, have to go back. Okay, so then I did leaves after that, it looks like. I don't see any of the smooth marble yet, but I think we'll get some. I think leaves might be the hardest part of tree builds in general, just because the hammering process is so hard to tell exactly what you're doing. But I guess with the proper walls, it makes it a lot more forgiving. You can kind of just smooth stuff out, fill in the gaps, and add a little bit of depth all at once by just throwing some walls on behind and skirting around the tips and stuff. Makes that really handy. Although everywhere I had the branches overlapping with other parts is where things got a little bit more complicated, and I had to, take out the actuators or replace them or do some combo, rehammer stuff, replace stuff, paint stuff, and just go through the whole process again here and there in little niche areas. Maybe that there's the yellow marigold that survives. I went ahead and got myself a little water so I can maybe keep my voice intact. We'll see what happens with that. Still a lot of leaves to place here. I did continuously check the various traveling merchants that arrived for quite a while into the build before being totally sure that I had everything I could possibly need from him forever, and then eventually stopped checking. Oh, here I go, finally sprinkling in my marble. And I'm trying to remember, I think I tried testing out with a little bit of the marble walls as well, but I ended up just sticking with only the living wood walls. But I did use a little bit of the marble in the actuated wood as well. Start looking at it with most of the leaves coming in on the outward frame. Add some little pieces of leaves here and there on the inside too. Just, yeah. Really took my time to make sure there were little bits of leaves in color as much as I could. I had kind of thought in my mind of how this was gonna go. There wouldn't be any sections that were gonna be so monotonously long that I was really struggle to come up with stuff to talk about for the whole time. But I severely underestimated the amount of time that it took me to do this specific section of just the vines on the oval frame, or whatever you want to call it. I totally forgot just how much time I spent on these. More actuation removal. Man, it would have helped if I could do area of effect actuation removal rather than just lines, like I talked about before. That would be a sweet feature to get added. Smart cursor mode on the grand design or something like that. When the wind started blowing, though, this is when I first realized how crazy the leaf effect goes when you have a bunch of actuated leaf blocks. The floating leaf textures through the air go kind of crazy, and they just fly. And then if you have like a wall or something, they just cake the whole wall. It's pretty. It's kind of cool. Man, I'm seeing so many of the little. There are brief black sections where what happened was, and I don't know why this happened, but with my OBS recording, when I tabbed out and back in, it would be a black screen for like a few seconds. And so there's just flashes of black screen now. And I'm really trying to catch them and cut them out. But there are just so many, and over the course of like a 2-hour section, it would take... I basically what I need to do is rewatch in real time all of this section after I finish putting the commentary on, and then slice out the black sections, which I should do, but no matter how hard I try, I'm probably going to miss some of them. I noticed, though, now that I have my new computer set up, it does that same thing. And for a long time on my other computer, it had fixed where I would tab out and back in seamlessly, and OBS wouldn't flash black for whatever reason. But now with the new computer setup, I noticed it doing it again. So I need to figure out what's causing that. It's I don't know, maybe I could try uninstalling and reinstalling OBS or something, but definitely not ideal. Oh, I had to do a gem tree harvest here. I definitely went through a lot of the diamond gem spark blocks in various places, but as you can imagine, in the main frame that in all the vines, a ton of emerald gem spark I used. Here I go making up some more of it, because I wanted to line the whole vine itself with it. And I noticed I'm putting it behind the leaves. I don't know if I left it behind the leaves or ended up just going mainly behind the vine, the big, thicker vine sections itself. And then another thing I did was I ended up painting it brown, and that doesn't change the green glow, but if there happens to be like a corner or something, it blends in a little bit were it to poke out at all, which it shouldn't, but just in case, there's no harm in painting it brown, I guess, when it's completely invisible. I'm trying to think how far into this video did I start working on these vines. I'm gonna guess it's gonna be well over an hour of just these vines in the time lapse, which is over 20 hours real time of just the building itself, which for something this repetitive is quite a while. In my mind, I don't remember it feeling like forever when I was working on it, which watching it back now is pretty surprising. But we're getting close now. Getting sort of near the final-ish, quote, final touches on the vines. But then after this is when I start on the platforms. Oh no, I still have these to go too. I still got the main middle support vines, so this should go pretty quick. But then I still have the connecting platforms and walkways to navigate the whole structure. And those, of course, some of them, well, I think they're all in front of the various vine sections. So I had to figure out how to fit those in too, and then, you know, rehammer, reactuate, and do all this. So there's still a lot of steps to go with all the modifications I end up making. Oh, that's what I keep doing. I notice I keep jumping down in the old living tree room underground, and I realized it's because there was a living loom there, and I was using it to craft more of the blocks I needed. The living leaves, or not living leaves, but the living leaf wall and living wood walls. And I actually remembered to use the, what's it called? Oh my gosh, what? I just blanked on the name of it. The actuation accessory. Man, I just totally forgot about it. It's, I can't believe it. What the heck? The accessory that you put on that automatically places actuators, that for some reason still is not combined into like the hand of creation even, which is kind of funny. But anyway, yeah, that does help in situations exactly like this where I'm going to be actuating everything. Putting that on at least makes it so I don't have to trace all of everything to place the actuators with. I just have to remove them afterwards. Man, I'm still trying to think of what that thing is called. Oh, the pressurator is now, that's what it's called? Man, I want to double check here. Yeah, it's the pressurator. According to the tips, this is occasionally considered useless in comparison to the grand design, which allows a precise way of placing actuators. However, the pressurator still proves effective when placing large chunks of blocks, as it is not required to make the additional effort of placing the actuators after the blocks. Furthermore, it's more efficient when placing blocks in irregular patterns, such as a zigzag, because the grand design only supports straight lines. Yep, I totally agree. Which is why I totally regretted not using it when I'm building certain large curved shapes and stuff like that. There have been quite a few times when I wished that I had remembered to put the actuator on, or sorry, the pressurator, and forgot to. Maybe that's what I should do to fill the time, just pull up random wiki pages and just see what I can learn from them. That would be kind of fun, honestly, but I guess that kind of reminds me actually of when I was in school, in college mainly, between classes when I didn't have anything to do, I would head to the computer lab, or either the library or one of the computer labs in one of my buildings, and I would pull up occasionally the Terraria Reddit and look at what kind of builds I could find. But a lot of what I would do is just go to the Terraria wiki and go to a random page and read everything on the page and see if there was anything that I didn't already know. And I mean, that kept me entertained for so much of my break time in school and other places too. Like even now, if I'm like at work and I have a huge chunk of time where I'm not outside working and I just sitting waiting for a job to an appointment or something in the office, I'll just pull up a random wiki page and see what I can learn. So now, finally, I've just about wrapped up with the vines. We're only an hour and 45 minutes almost into the video, maybe, and I've maybe somewhere between an hour and a half of that was, oh my gosh, I just missed a gold squirrel. What the heck? That's tragic. Long time was on those vines, but now we've got the platforms to start lining up, and these, I kind of had my idea. I just wanted a general way to navigate the platform, or the frame, the oval frame, even with no mobility. So I had to figure out how I was going to pass through in and out of the frame, and ended up figuring out just how to make these little actually actuated tunnels, basically, to pass through, so that I could simulate little like tunnel passages through the oval with the pathway. And then I did eventually know I wanted to make it symmetrical, so most of it was just figuring out how to lay out the platforms roughly, and then the process of locating where I wanted to cross from inside to outside, and then put in that whole little tunnel area. Definitely adding another layer of effort to the vines again, like I was talking about earlier. But it worked out okay, and it really wasn't incredibly hard to get straightened out. Trying to get a good idea of the most efficient way to start building platforms around and stuff. I started off with this kind of like zigzag platform design, and I think I went away with that and added in generally a couple of spiral staircases in place of those, which I think work out better. But then once the slope reaches 45 degrees or shallower, then I can easily just do regular little stair sections with platforms mixed in. And by platforms, I mean not platforms. I mean sections of bricks that are slabs of bricks built out of brick blocks. Oh, I briefly went back to try to figure out if I could do some like vine, small detailed vines around the main pillars at the spawn point, but couldn't really get anything to work there. Now that I've done mainly in the was it the pet and mount display area where I have built a little arena to run and test out mounts in. I had a pillar design there, thick stone brick variations pillar, and then I did twisting vines around those, and those came out pretty good. But that's mainly because I used actual bricks for the pillars, and they were thick enough to work with. I don't think I could really pull that off very well with the pillar supports in the structure in the center here. So I can see I still periodically went back and tried playing with some stuff, but didn't come up with anything decent. Figured out how to cross the little pathway down underneath the upper center crystal, which worked out pretty cool. It turned out looking cool. And then just added some support, hanging support pillars. And it looks like I'm starting to realize I don't want to use these zigzag platforms. Got to patch the tree up. And then I just ended up going with a spiral staircase and started trying that out. Messed around with different platforms too instead of stone, like tried what was it there? Between stone and marble platforms. That's what I was kind of deciding between. Ended up going with just stone instead. It's a little bit less bright white, but then I used marble for like just the spiral staircases, I guess. And then figured out how to do the support pillars depending on how thick they were. I could either do 2 marble or sandstone pillars with then walls in between, or if I needed to go behind leaves and tree branches, I would just use some combination of I think I used iron fences with mahogany fences was one of my go-tos. Or actually no, it would have been two mahogany fences on either side of like a fancy gray. Is that what it was? Fancy gray wallpaper, I believe. And then just painted it all white. Here's the little support piece for the top middle section. And then I just mirrored exactly the platform layout on the right hand side as well. So I just ended up cutting through any little leaf and tree branches that I needed, and then just actuating them as necessary to blend them back in behind. Added the other spiral staircase. Again, had to actuate some more of the leaves. And then it ended up starting to work out pretty good. Threw in a few more living leaf blocks or living leaf walls behind the spiral staircases where I had to cut the leaves out, and that worked out good to keep that structure of the leaf and branch there, but just send it back behind the main platform. Start thinking about how now to go about approaching the bottom side. And I tried mirroring the platforms that I had, but I don't I think I put a spiral staircase in here, don't I? Maybe I don't. I'm trying to remember now what it ends up like. It's kind of playing a little game of memory. So I get my pass through tunnel. Enhance, zoom in. Okay, now I'm messing around with it more. Here we go. Yep, that's it. I knew it was a spiral staircase. Come back over to the right side, get things lined up, and kind of just, it was kind of awkward because I already had the both tunnel things, areas where I wanted to pass underneath figured out. So I ended up just having the staircase be connect to a bit of regular stairs up above, and then just land on the platform below, which works out okay, but it's probably not how it would have ended up had I started with the spiral staircase itself. Actually, I might end up removing that lower pass through now that I'm thinking about it. I think I might just end up with the upper one. I'm noticing that as usual, I have my rare creature finder indicator enabled, but I also have the weather turned on, which usually I don't, but I think I may have been, for a good portion of my build, I was watching for the wind to pick up in order to qualify for ladybug spawns, because I was hoping to find some golden ladybugs, and so I was always watching for those. And then if it did become windy enough, I would go back to spawn, and if I stood right in the center, ladybugs would spawn on the left where those tall trees are, and so I could actually catch a fair amount of ladybugs. But I'm trying to think now if I ever actually got a gold ladybug from this. I got 2 gold ladybugs, but I think they both may have been on this world, on my 1.4 playthrough world. Had to get a little bit more marble by the looks of it. Most all of my resource collection is not recorded, but there may be just short sections here and there where it is. And this is still before they increased the maximum stack size to 9,999 instead of just 999. So that once that change came through, that definitely expedited some of the process as well, the block management, inventory management, and all that. Then I figured out the 2 low center spiral staircases, get those lined up, and I think by this point I did have the idea of generally how I wanted to kind of build some kind of storage room and functional crafting area in the center down below this. Although, you know what I could do is I could actually look up my notes. That'd be a good idea. I should pull those up next time for the whole video, but I can read through my let me find those actually. I can read through my building notes as I took them, and then that'll give me some insights as to what I was thinking, and or maybe it will. We'll see. Let's see. Man, I'm excited that I got past the freaking vine section of Doom that took years. Oh, that's weird. Oh, here we go. I actually have notes on the gold ladybug. So, in 2021, in August, I got laid out the walkways around the outer oval. Still hadn't decorated them. Added support beneath the tall trees on the left, so I haven't done that yet. That must be in this section, right? Or have I, or did I add a little platform for that? I don't think so. But then found my second ever gold ladybug while getting materials from the home base, after finding the first one earlier while recording for the Summoner series. Oh, okay. So I actually found my first ever gold ladybug on the Summoner series. I totally forgot about that. And then it was the next day while working on this that I found another one on my main world. But that's crazy how 2 days in a row I found gold ladybugs, and those are still currently the only 2 gold ladybugs I've ever found, and both of them are on display in Tigaria now. Yeah, that's pretty funny. So, get all the platforms textured up here, so added in the various brick textures to add a little bit of character and spice them up a little bit. I do find that just very basically, like, if I look back at all my older, like, original builds that I had done on my old worlds, before I really started building anything seriously, I never textured the volume of my brick or block choices, but just adding a variety of different bricks or like soils or whatever block you're using to add the texture and color in really just adds a lot to most builds. I feel like that at the most basic level is super beneficial, and like immediately takes a level of the build up significantly. That being said, I feel like now that I almost standardly just do that, even from very early on in my playthroughs, I'll just grab random blocks and like throw a few different ones in there just to add that texture. Now finding spaces where I want that smoothness and that consistency, and where I only use a certain type of block for large volumes, is almost like more rewarding because of how uncommon it is, and being able to find and include sections of smoothness and symmetry is now a lot, almost more impressive and more meaningful to me than it had been before. It's I don't know if I'm doing a great job of explaining what I'm trying to say there, but hopefully you can kind of get the idea. Basically, I started off very symmetry focused, and since have gone away from symmetry and smoothness and really worked on including asymmetry and texture and grunginess everywhere, and it adds a much higher level of character and uniqueness, and it feels a lot more, well, it feels more professional in a weird way, I guess. I don't know how to precisely describe it. But after moving in that direction and sort of practicing out my original habits of pattern making and symmetry, it's really fun to try to find areas where I can re-implement those original types of strategies and techniques. Here we go with my favorite combo, the rich mahogany plus the fancy gray wallpaper for the supports. I ended up just using that almost exclusively because I could continue it back behind whatever tree branches and stuff there were, so it other than a few cases like right here where I only had like one block or something, I ended up with the pillars and then the fancy gray behind to add just a little bit of width. That worked pretty good, but it was still tough because I couldn't continue it smoothly behind leaves and branches and stuff. But I think that basically brings us close to the conclusion of the bare platform layout. So had those in place here, and then it continued on with what did I do next actually? Oh yeah, okay. Then I added the support for the tall trees, like in my notes. What was I doing there? I got really interested in what some of the NPCs had to say. Maybe because they were all jammed together. I was probably having a good time reading all their negative quotes from being next to the people they hated. So this is the first section I really remember trying to implement the steampunk chandeliers and having those be kind of a helping support for the structure itself, and then just tried to come up with some cool shapes, but still added the gem spark as another source of energy and support for the platform itself. Looked like I caught a few ladybugs there. It got windy. Had my little makeshift workspace, like a sawmill and crafting table and whatnot, on a little arm of wood blocks that I built off of the castle there. It did take me a little while to come up with a decent design for this right here. I ended up doing some angled hammered pieces inside of the center, tried that out. Played with platforms, changed some stuff around, and eventually came up with something I kind of liked, but it definitely took me a little while. And then I had to figure out how to make a little staircase that sort of that was compatible with the tall trees. So I tried to make it look like it was in the background behind the trees, and you'll notice I got my chlorophyte jackhammer out so that I could adjust the platforms and or remove walls without accidentally cutting down the trees, which is a mistake that I have occasionally made, and I did not want to do that with these trees. Get the wrought iron fences out as well, and those really help to add the detail for this theme. And then of course the palladium columns add the little notching texture on the blocks, and the bricks rather, and those work really good too. Tried to come up with a little filler for that in-between space, and I think I just ended up with like some banners or something, nothing fancy. I just decided to take a break and use the bathroom, but I'm back now. Did I miss anything crazy? Oh, I just got back in time to see a black spot. So then I had obviously a little bit of space left. Oh, this is this part. Oh man. On the left, so next to the tall trees, I wanted to build a little cabin like structure kind of thing. I don't know. And then I just wanted to have a little like a little cabin shrine in honor of trees, the tall trees. So inside of the building, I wanted to have a couple small trees, and I made two little spots where I wanted the trees to grow, and then waited for them to grow, did some stuff, worked on lighting, did some other furnishing, waited for the trees to grow some more, found that they grew but not the one that I wanted, or they were too big or something. And this was obviously before fertilizer was a thing. So I spent I remember spending a long time semi-AFK hanging around here waiting for those trees to grow. And long time. not as long as I spent building the vines or anything, but I would just wait for the trees to grow, see if it was a good size, and then cut it down and grow a new one when it wasn't good. So then the left-hand side finally grew, and I wanted the right one to be a little bit shorter to match it. So then I waited for that for a while, and then I decided that I was able to start on the statue features down in the bottom center, which ended up being the celestial fragments. And at the start, I didn't exactly know what I wanted to do. In fact, what was I trying to do? Looking at that shape that I made, I have no idea. I don't actually have very in-depth notes. I just have the notes that I built the tree info building to the left of the tall trees. And then I do talk about the buildings I included on the right side to support it. Oh, look, I finished growing the decent trees, and then I could put the roof on and finish designing it. Which, the roof with the, so, what is it? Dynasty wood plus the gold platforms turned out pretty nice. And then I had tried to consider doing the 3D cabin roof, but I don't know. I've never really done a roof like that worked well until, arguably well, the one of the painting museums. I ended up doing that for later. We'll see, but that'll be a little ways down the road. But I ended up with, just the Dynasty plus the gold platforms, and then a little bit of rich mahogany wood itself. And it worked really good. I liked the color contrast between all that. And then built up the interior and framed it all in and all that. But anyway, as far as the little statues go at the center bottom, I don't have noted what I was trying to do originally, but eventually I did figure out that I wanted to do the celestial fragments, and that ended up being pretty cool. It worked out good. So there's a little upstairs section, some windows, some larger windows behind the two trees, and then kind of figured out how to build in the roof too. The awkward part, though, was it ended up being it was an even block number in width, so I had to figure out how to make kind of a custom 4-block wide chandelier, and it was hard. It didn't work out super nice, but I think I ended up sticking with something kind of like that. But oh, that's right. And then I added a couple more little roof sections for the lower section of roof, which also kind of looked good. Widened it out a little bit. Used every block that I could before running into the tall trees there that I couldn't take out. Got the lawnmower out, mowed just the grass on the inside of the building to smooth it up, and then figured out the rest of the lighting and that stuff. the roof I used just a little bit of actual mahogany lights, the candles and lanterns, right? Yeah, and they worked out pretty good. A couple candelabras as well in the roof itself. So. And they definitely worked nice there, which is cool. One of the few times that I've actually used mahogany furniture. Actually, most of the time that stuff is hard to fit in. So then I needed to balance out this stuff on the right hand side, and so got to work on that, and pretty quickly figured out that I could build similarly sized platforms, build a generally symmetrical smaller building on the outside, and then towards the inside, instead of the trees, I would just build the actual world welcome, an informational building kind of there that'll welcome you or explorers, visitors into the world, the visitor center, I guess. Explain kind of generally what the idea was, and then how to go about exploring it. So I just mirrored the underside of it exactly, I believe, and then I had myself some space to work with for the builds, and these ones also ended up turning out pretty cool. The visitor center itself is probably one of my favorite compact builds, I'd say. It doesn't really have a ton of depth in terms of like 3D design, but it has a ton of texture. It's probably like the most texture rich build that I've ever done. Well, I could make that argument for Galactic Jambalaya as well, the interface for Downfall. But the Welcome Center definitely was a lot of fun and took a lot of time to get all the details ironed out. I don't know how many different types of blocks and different painting. Well, most of it's all painted white or maybe some gray, but used a lot of different blocks to get different textures and effects, and then different walls overlapping. But we'll get into that pretty shortly here. I still was making some modifications too, I guess, on the underside here, adding in more detail and polishing that up as I went. Tried to figure out where my little notches went to match those up. Add all the gem spark, and then got the groundwork done. The outside building was pretty quick. Mostly, like I said, mirrored it up again, but almost like a very similar shape and structure, but I changed the roof block palette a little bit. So I used boreal wood instead of Dynasty, and then I think it was boreal, wasn't it? I think I stuck with boreal and maybe some pearl stone, or not pearl stone, pearl wood, instead of the Dynasty mixed with rich mahogany. Yeah. Okay, and then I think, is that right? Yeah, I must have used I think I used pearlwood lights instead of and not rich mahogany. Sorry, not boreal, which would make sense. The boreal lights are cool, but they're all made out of frost torches or ice torches, so they're all blue, which is not the lighting color I was going for this. Started figuring out how to connect it to the spiral staircase as well there. And then I didn't need to grow any trees in this one, but I still wanted a nice window feature in the main room, so got a cool little oval window in the downstairs and then another window upstairs. Got it working pretty well there. And then I think I add a few signs in it, but a lot of signs I might add later on, as I basically just used that building as a continuation of the welcome center and progression log for the of the base build progress. Went with a little different staircase for this side as opposed to the tall tree side, because I wanted to leave more space for the building itself. And I actually really like how that staircase turned out, how it turns behind the little cherry trees or whatever. And then I start messing around with all the different block options I have for building the walls in this base, or not base, in the little welcome build. I got the doorways kind of lined up just with my with whatever it's called, the marble columns, and then the fancy gray wallpaper again, and then figured out how to make the coolest looking little chunks of walls that I could. Start hanging some piece of roof over the middle of it, and then I was starting to think about how I wanted to implement the golden domed roof like I had on the castle tops as well. And then with I found that the meteorite brick had a cool kind of glowy pop effect, and then if I painted it white, it would blend in with the bricks, but in the nighttime it would still glow orange. So I think what I did is I ended up putting the diamond gemspark walls behind them, and that sort of overpowered the orange glow, so even at night it glows white instead of orange, which works out really, really good. And then it adds that sort of bright outline and highlights those parts subtly. I don't actually know if those blocks are what I end up keeping there or not. Got out some of the gold chandeliers. Wait, gold or golden? No, I think those are golden chandeliers, not to be confused with the gold chandeliers. And then I started figuring out some little custom fountain design in the center. And this actually turned out to be really cool. I really like how this came out in the end, with the use of some actuated blocks, some furniture, some of the fountains, floating them here and there, and then also the waterfall walls. What is it? Wait, is it? Oh yeah, it's just waterfall wall. Did some playing around with different options, but ended up going compact enough to fit in the space, but still had a good amount of detail and stuff to it, which I like how it turned out. Add some window feature in there too. Overall, I don't know what it is about it, but I just really like how this little building ended up coming out. I guess it did take me a long time to get the right combination of walls and everything to get it how I wanted it. But I still like the final product, if I remember right. And yeah, so the base of the fountain there, sometimes a good base of a fountain would be like the marble tub. You could use that, but that's 4 blocks wide, and in this case I had it 5, and it kind of looked like it did blend with the floor, but because of the texture of the corners, it gave it like an elevated pool looking look to it. Then I grabbed a bunch of plant-related furniture and items and went to finish flushing out the tree welcome center, and then the other side too I get to, I believe. And then just some random fun furniture for the tall trees as well. I eventually add in. Get the initial signage ready to go, and then the first set of story signs. Oh yeah, so I lowered that center chandelier to fill the space a little nicer. Added the marble bookshelves look really nice. Those can be one of the greatest furniture items to fit in. Added some books, some item frames, some signs. There's one of the marble tubs in the right hand room, because that room is an even number wide. And it looks like we're on to the center chandelier. So I wanted to make a sort of a large feature in the center, hanging from the top of the platform here. And I wanted to figure out what was the best way to hang it. So I spent a bunch of time with minecart tracks, trying to mess around with different ways to make chain looking hanging, or like a hanging chain look or something. And I remember just messing around with this for a while. I don't even know if I ended up using chains or not. Or not chains, the minecart tracks. I do use them for the lower portion, I'm sure. But I don't remember if I use them for the upper section like that or not. Maybe I just end up leaving it kind of like that. But again, I just was planning on using the golden chandeliers. Oh yeah, and then I also used golden tables. Those worked out nice as this sort of connection piece to support different 2 arms of 3 chandeliers each. The golden platforms for detailing, and I just hammered them down flat against the bricks. Those worked out nice as well. And then threw in some more of the banners painted white and stuff like that. I didn't have that many of the what's it called? Round table war table banners. Is that right? The old one's army banners that are 2 blocks wide. Oh my gosh, I looked them up like in one of the last Summoner episodes because I couldn't remember them, right? War table banner. I want to say that's what it is, but that doesn't sound totally right. Anyway, at one point I figured out that if I activated the Old One's army on this world here, because it's still hasn't progressed any bosses other than like the Eye of Cthulhu. It's still tier 1 Old One's army. And so if I take, and I don't know if it still works like this, but if I fought tier 1 Old One's army, I could immediately melt all of the waves with the Zenith, obviously. And when the Dark Mage spawned, there was a weird thing that would happen where I could kill her almost instantly with the Zenith, right? And so she would just immediately spawn again. And so for like, I don't even know, for a few seconds, I could continuously kill the Dark Mages. And so I got a bunch of the War Table banners doing that. And that helped out a ton, because otherwise it's really tedious to get those types of items. Even now that they added, like, you can skip to the next wave of Old One's army as soon as you've completed the previous one. Even then, it's... you still have to get through every wave, and it takes time. But just from doing that a couple of times, I got enough of those banners to last me for a while. So then I started figuring out this cool little campfire design, one for each of the fragments, and I think I just ended up, with ultra bright campfires. And do I just leave them white? I can't remember if I leave them white or if I did end up painting them to match the colors of the fragments, but either way, then I actually have the idea to build the celestial fragments in little statue forms. And I do use quite a few of the pillar statues, which are one of my favorite furniture items. For many reasons, but as you can see, I'm using a lot of them, and they're not renewable. So all that I have would be from exploring and looting them off various worlds. So yeah, here's me figuring out how to go about recreating the fragments in floating statue form, which definitely I remember being a lot of fun. Had some good times doing that. Started with Vortex, got the Stardust, started to figure out, ended up making it a little bit bigger, and then I left that little floating chunk on the not chunk, but like little fragment on the bottom right side, which is in the item sprite, oddly enough. And then got the nebula, and so that left a space in the middle where I just ended up wanting to represent Luminite in the end, which I ended up just making a kind of a custom statue design for, didn't I? Or actually, yeah, I think I do. Maybe I just don't, but... Oh yeah, and then I painted the campfires different colors and added the monoliths. And this is where I discovered how cool the monolith effect, especially the void monolith, is on this build specifically. When you activate it, it really makes all of the white painted bricks pop out like crazy. And so for this specifically, I was like, dang, that is so cool. So I ended up, as I do remember specifically talking about in the episode of Tigaria, I wired it up and set up more monoliths so that I had the whole center just about covered with them. And you could toggle it on and off and then have the void effect turn on and make everything look really crazy. I guess it was just that There's me discovering it right there. The I just recreated a little piece of luminite brick to represent luminite down in the bottom, and it worked out pretty good. Then I went back and touched up furniture again in the main welcome center. Added a couple of zeniths. Did some more lawn mowing. You know, all the essential things. Here's my furnishing of the tall trees. Added lights and then a few little random pieces of benches and furniture and whatever I could fit in. I added a butterfly in there, and I think, what did I add originally? It's not, is it in there yet? Oh, and then I got the wiring hooked up for that, yeah. I think I added like a monarch butterfly, but then later on I went back and switched it out for a gold butterfly, actually, to be all fancy. And then it was time for the next expansion phase. So got the good old Celebration Mark II out and went to town blasting out the next crater, the ever expanding crater. I think it was at this point I must have moved the NPCs to a new temporary bunker floating in the middle of the sky out of the way. And then this is when I started getting ready for, well, partially the crafting and storage room, but also what I think shortly realized I wanted to do, which was the big granite stone pillars that support each of the tree branch, or each of the vine trunks, like right there, here, and then the two on the right side here and up here. So get all that ground out of the way, and then this is when I actually measured down to level surface, I believe, and figured out that that's where I wanted to make that's the point below which I wanted to build the crafting area, because all above that I had the world background to work with, and I could have open sky, which I really wanted to be able to use. Oh, I guess nope, the NPCs are still down there, but maybe not for long. Did I get down to level surface yet? I don't think I had. I don't remember. But anyway, yeah. I quickly realized I wanted to get down to level surface, have that be the transition from everything so far in the base down to the crafting area and storage system, which could all be underground. And I wouldn't have to worry about taking up space, which would taking up space above the ground, above level surface, where I could be building other things that I wanted the world sky background for. Maybe I did already measure down to level surface, but I wasn't paying super close attention to whether or not I pulled out my depth. It looks like I'm not. No, maybe I am. It's hard to say. Just based on the map clips. Okay, maybe that is the size of it, so. Yeah, looks like I did get the shape figured out. And then the first thing I did was retexture the ground with a custom stone mix that I came up with. Started with just like regular stone. Obviously had my living mahogany ready to go. When I decided to stop at the snow on one side and then the sand on the other side, which both naturally had been there, so I kind of wanted to somewhat include some of the natural features of the world rather than just completely terraforming everything and totally. But yeah, went ahead and just basically got rid of all of the dirt, went to stone, and then started mixing in various other types of stone to make it unique and textured. Then I turn around to go back with the living mahogany. And then, if I remember right, there's like 3 or 4 other blocks I still used on top of this. So, mudstone brick, painted gray, mixed that in, and then got the granite blocks out, which don't blend, so they provide a harsh edge, and are pretty dark, especially when you just paint them gray. Then the sandstone. Sandstone is a little bit lighter and smoother, but I mixed that in little sections, like little clumps. And then, due to the non-blending, I needed to add walls here and there behind some of those. And then I also came back with little sections of grass and threw those in here and there. And overall, I do like how it came out, and just turned out to be a really great blend of textures, basically. And that pretty much right there is going to conclude the core section. So the next section starts with those big basalt pillars. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. We got through the vine creation, which took so long. But the rest of it, I think I'm actually going to be more excited about. So thanks a whole bunch for watching. Hope you enjoyed it, and have an outstanding rest of your day.